Yes.
Or I guess it doesn't matter. Hello, hello. Oh, it does work. Well, it's so good to see you all again. I'm Mark Hyatt. I'm the founder of FALCON AEROLAB, and we're in our 9th year and still growing and serving a much more diverse population than we started 8.5 years ago with just 14 homeschool students. And now we're almost 1,400 students, and homeschool's about 875, 900, and then the rest are camp students. They're outreach at various rural schools and public schools, private schools. And we actually have 42 students that are spread around Oregon, Utah, Montana, Kansas, and Arizona. So, you know, I guess I have to figure out what I want to be when I grow up, and I haven't quite figured that out yet. So, you know, I don't know how big we should get. It just seems that there's no competition in the STEM aviation aerospace world. So anyway, this is being zoomed out now to our students all over the you know, I say country, mostly in the Rocky Mountain West. But we're very fortunate today to be here with Samantha Weeks. I should call you doctor, I should call you colonel. You probably would have been a general if you stayed in. But anyway, I told her I was going to call her Superwoman. And I know many of us have seen the movie with Gal Gadot and all that. Well, there are these women that just, I know I have a Canadian friend, that they call them streamers, you know, where everybody else just, their parachutes come out, but then there's always a streamer, the one that just goes ahead of everybody else, and that's this lady right here. She's a streamer, and she is good at everything she does. And I'd heard about her a few years ago, and I've been trying to figure out or meet somebody that knows her, and I don't even know how we connected, but we met a week or two ago for coffee. And be very careful if you ever meet me for coffee, because something big's going to come out of it. Okay, something good. So, no. Anyway, okay, she's been like the best at everything she does. She was one of the very best cadets at the Air Force Academy, class of '97. I was class of '74, so obviously she's much, much younger than I am. But then she went out, became a top fighter pilot, and I was a fighter pilot, but I'm not as good as her. I probably may have been a quarterfinalist or something for the Thunderbirds, but she was a Thunderbird because she was the best fighter pilot and the best pilot around. So she has combat time. She's a Thunderbird. She's performed for, oh gosh, tens of thousands of people, or maybe it's hundreds, I don't know, whatever it is, all over the world. And then she went into her real sweet spot, which is leadership. And she became a group commander out at our equivalent, ours, Air Force equivalent of Top Gun, which is called Red Flag out at Nellis, and all the things that go on out in Las Vegas. And then she became a wing commander, which is one of the top positions in the Air Force. And she was in charge of training all sorts of young people to become all the kinds of pilots we need in the Air Force. And now she works for a company that is one of the largest defense contractors in the country. And I'm just trying to recruit her to do more for AeroLab. But anyway, she's done it all. She's the best. And I'm going to hand it over to Colonel Samantha Weeks, PhD.
Thank you, sir. I'm good. Well, thank you all very much, and I will try to sort of stay in one spot as I talk to you guys today, but I appreciate FALCON AEROLAB and the opportunity to get to be here today with you all. And when I was working with Sarah and Mark and Mimi, you guys were supposed to watch the Thunderbird Netflix movie first. And I am actually flying out to California in a few hours, so don't worry, this won't go all day, in order to watch one of the cadets that I've mentored along the way promote to Lieutenant Colonel. So she's now old also, but it just shows you how everything that we do is connected to each other, and no matter where you are in your journey, it really is about the FALCON AEROLAB mission to inspire the future, to educate you, to train you, so that you one day will be standing up here talking to the next generation for aviation across the entire spectrum of aerospace, aviation, space, AI, and whatever the future is to come that we can't even imagine yet. So I will say that I asked FALCON AEROLAB if I could kind of speak first, also because what you'll notice is there's a little bit of less time to the solo pilots in the Netflix video. So this way you can have a full rounding as to the 6 planes that fly. And I'll also talk about the men and women who make it happen every day, which is not the 6 pilots who you see at the air show. Did anybody go to Pueblo last weekend? Or Loveland the weekend before? I didn't either. My kids, I have an 8-year-old and a 9-and-a-half-year-old, 3rd and 4th grade, and they actually say, Mom, that's boring. So I have a lot of work to do on them because it is not boring, which hopefully you will all tell me that today. So one thing that you'll hear from fighter pilots along the way is we like to talk with our hands. We don't know why, but we do. And we usually will start every single story with, so there I was. This is one plane, this is another plane, and we're always shooting our wrist. And so my story starts in that way. So there I was as a 6-year-old little girl. Do we have any 6-year-olds in here? Okay, we got a 6-year-old, awesome. And my dad was in the Air Force, and we were stationed in the United Kingdom, England, in 1981. And we wanted to fly home to the United States in order to visit our family. And there are times where a military aircraft is flying from one country back to the United States, and you can jump on that plane because it's going your way and it has empty space. And so my family, my dad, my sister, and I were doing that in 1981. My mom got a break and she stayed in England for a week. And we were flying home on a KC-135 tanker. Zach?
Yeah, just ask Zach.
Zach, it's not working. There we go. So I am that little blonde girl in front, and my sister, who's 2 years old, is behind me. We are not twins, but our parents dressed us that way. Some of you kids have to deal with that too. It will stop at some point. At least when you're 49, it'll stop. My sister still tries to make us dress alike, though. And that plane on the bottom right or bottom left there is a KC-135. It is pretty much a gas station in the sky. That hose that you see coming out of the back is the boom. And that literally is how you give gas from that big aircraft to any other aircraft. And you can see in that upper right picture, that's the seats that we would sit in. It's cargo netting, which makes economy on Spirit look even luxury, right? But I learned very quickly that that bottom right picture is where we all want to be. It's called the boom area. That is a nice cushion where you can lay down, and you can see in that middle one, I was laying right there, and there's a window. And I'm looking out at the world below me as we're flying from England across the Atlantic Ocean back to the United States. And I can remember seeing icebergs floating in the North Atlantic Ocean. And I was amazed, and I felt a freedom looking out that window at the world below that I had never in my life felt before. And I thought that was the coolest thing that I would see during this day as we flew back to upstate New York. And I had no idea that our mission was about to happen and that my view was going to be even cooler. The boomer came to the back where my sister and I were laying and asked my sister to get out, and he told us it was time to do our mission. So I scooted over to the right kind of cushion, and the boomer lay down in that middle spot. And suddenly, I saw 4 EF-111s pull up behind the tanker, right outside that window. And this, right here, was the view that I suddenly was looking at. And I was in absolute awe and amazement looking at that plane just a mere 20 feet below me. I could see inside that cockpit. I saw the fighter pilot, saw his knee board, the card that we wear on our leg that tells us how to do everything, right there, and could look at him back and forth as he's taking gas. And it was just such a thrilling thing to witness and see. After the second aircraft, the boomer asked me to swap out and let my sister watch. And reluctantly, I did what I was told. And I went up to where my dad was sitting on those cargo netting seats. And I walked up and I said, "Dad, I know what I want to be when I grow up." And my dad looked at me and was like, "What, the boomer?" And I was like, "No, I want to be that pilot." And my dad literally and figuratively patted me on the back and said, "Girls don't do that." And I kind of thought, what do you mean girls don't do that? Well, it was 1981. And by law, women were not allowed to fly combat aircraft. We could not do this job. It was not open to us. It didn't matter. I could fly the KC-135, but I could not fly that plane that you're looking at. So the words of my dad were not harsh. He was not trying to kill my dream. He was not some unsupportive person that said women should do this and men should do that. He was just doing what he and my mom always did. He told me the truth. And those words in that moment could have been something that just stopped that dream right there dead on its tracks. But for some reason, when my dad said girls don't do that, I didn't hear no. I saw that there was a mountain that we see around us every day here in Colorado Springs. And it was a mountain that I would summit, and I knew that I could summit. So instead of accepting girls don't do that, there was a fire that sparked inside of me in that day, and it's still alive and thriving today inside of me, so that when somebody tells me no, my inner being says, "Watch me go." So for all of those kids in here, keep that spark alive in a respectful way to your parents, but keep that spark alive. So becoming a fighter pilot when it's not even legal is probably, or the dream to become a fighter pilot when it's not even legal is probably one of those things of being bold and setting the bar high. But I worked from age 6 through 17, every single thing I did along the way to keep my dream alive and embrace a bold mindset that if I put in the time, the effort, the energy, that I could make my dream a reality. And that is some of the same things that we want to instill in each and every one of you as you are going from a fledgling in the FALCON AEROLAB program all the way through graduation in a 1A, because it is that bold tenacity and drive and determination which is going to allow you to achieve your dreams. So from age 6 through 17, I kept my eyes on the skies, and every single thing I did along the way was to try to get to that fighter cockpit. I learned about the Air Force Academy a few years later. My dad was enlisted in the Air Force. There were 3 daughters. And again, my parents were very honest. There was no money for college. So we had choices. The choice was, you will go to college, so no choice. So you can either be smart in school and get scholarships, or you can have a lot of debt. So I learned about the Air Force Academy, and they pay you to go to that school. Or so I thought in 1993. And my parents always joked that I was climbing a ladder through adolescence to get inside my fighter cockpit. And so I joined Civil Air Patrol in high school, and I was on sports teams and the captain, and I did all of these things so that I could get to the Air Force Academy. And in 1993, I graduated from high school on a Sunday. New York graduates late. and flew out here Monday morning to start basic training. And one thing that Mark and I had already talked about this morning is fighter pilots will always say that it is better to be lucky than good. And we don't really think that, but we know, and it's instilled in us, that you have to put in the work. So we know that we're going to strive to be good at what we do. So having a little bit of luck on our side is always a good thing. And I would say that when I graduated high school in '93, luck and timing were on my side. Because in April of 1993, there was a press conference, and it was General Merrill McPeak, along with 3 women, as women suddenly were allowed to fly fighter aircraft. The combat exclusion policy that kept us from that was now rescinded, and we could go and fly that plane. So my luck and timing was perfect because as I entered the Air Force Academy, 3 women entered the A-10, the F-15E, and the F-16. So now my dream could suddenly become a reality. But it required me to show up every single day and do my part through my attitude and my actions to still make that a reality. And I will tell you, as I tell my 2 young sons every single day, the world will try as much as it can to pull you down, right? To tell you that you can't do things, that you're not good enough, and all of these other things. But it is within your control, and the only 2 things that I think are within all of our control is our attitude, how we show up every single day with a willingness to learn and be better, and our actions, giving 100% to whatever we want to go do, that nobody can take away from us. So it is my attitude and actions as I enter the Air Force Academy that have to stay on point, still climbing that ladder to get into my fighter. So 4 years later, in the class of 1997, I graduated from the Air Force Academy and went off to pilot training. I kept my eyes on the skies, didn't think that anything could be harder than 4 years at the academy. And I found out very quickly that 1 year of pilot training is kind of like 4 years of the academy all at once. It's like finals week every single day for an entire year. Every single thing you do is a check ride, right? A final exam where they're going, how are you doing today? And you have to maintain a good mental focus in order to do that. And I wanted to achieve my dream. And so I had to put forth the effort every day. And we all make mistakes, right? Every single day we all make mistakes. And you have to figure out how to let that mistake go and press on. And not allow the mistake that happened 4 minutes ago affect what's going to happen 4 minutes from now. So after 1 year of pilot training, I found myself climbing a ladder to my F-15C as I jumped in my own fighter aircraft over the Gulf of Mexico, or the Gulf of America now, and went to a KC-135 to take gas in my own fighter aircraft. So that's where my story stops, right? Here I was, 6-year-old little girl. I had a dream, 23 years old. I find myself suddenly in that picture in a different aircraft. But it's not, because that would be a very boring story. So, where are we? It's 1998, so there I was, one of the first females entering the fighter community. I told you that 93 women were allowed to, and I found myself as the 7th woman ever in the F-15C. And I was assigned to the famed 94th Fighter Squadron, the Hat in the Ring Gang. We date our lineage back to World War I and Eddie Rickenbacker, who was one of the first Air Force aces, which means he shot down at least 5 enemy aircraft. Eddie Rickenbacker is one of the first aces in American history and really a critical and pivotal leader in today's Air Force. The 94th Fighter Squadron is the 2nd oldest fighter squadron in our history, and I found myself as its first ever female fighter pilot. Somewhere along the way in pilot training, I was told that there would be 25% of the guys that I served with who would be my champions. They would absolutely help me, support me, uplift me, guide me, mentor me, teach me everything. There would be 50% that could care less, just do your job and do it well. The plane doesn't care if I'm a male or female, and they wouldn't either. But in 1998, there would be about 25% of the guys that would not really love that I was suddenly entering their world. And in that time, that percentage was probably about accurate. And one night, sitting in the squadron, I found myself hearing my dad's voice in my head. And he had told me, always go find a crusty old master sergeant and make sure you're willing to listen and learn. So while I was sitting at the desk, I kind of saw this man in my periphery, and I was like, oh, he's a crusty old master sergeant. So I turn around and I start talking to this gentleman. And I'm really trying to do it because that is what the Air Force Academy taught me that officers and enlisted should do, is really talk, connect, build a relationship. And I had no idea that that conversation would really change my life and be something that I want to share with you today. So I turned around and I start talking to this man, and he smelled like the flight line. He smelled like jet fuel, hydraulic fluid, sweat because it was the summer, and a lot of elbow grease. And as I started sitting there and listening to him, I realized that I was starting to learn. And Master Sergeant Macy Jenkins really did leave an indelible mark on me that I hope to share with each of you today. He was a man that was critical to my journey of leadership and to being the best fighter pilot that I could be. Mark lied. I am not the best of the best. I've always said that I am an extremely average fighter pilot who works really hard. And that is how I had to look in the mirror and define myself. And I would probably rather be average that works really hard than great who doesn't put forth any effort. But Master Sergeant Macy Jenkins started to teach me the necessity of teamwork and trust in order to make relationships and your mission happen. He taught me, a fighter pilot, about my world, which was his world, and which was our world. I suddenly understood my mission from a different perspective. I learned about flying fighters from the ground and saw what it took for me to get into that cockpit and fly with those other 3 F-15Cs and gain and maintain air superiority where no enemy aircraft can come into our space or shoot at our aircraft. It took a lot more than me flying my plane, knowing my weapon system, knowing how to employ those missiles and radars, or being the best wingman. Macy showed me that it was about all the other pieces that I might not see or that might not be depicted on that picture every single day for this job to get done. He showed me that every single person plays a critical and vital role to achieving success and to really becoming part of the team. Fighter pilots will often say that we're the tip of the spear, and we might be the tip of the spear, but there's that entire shaft behind it that the tip of the spear doesn't do much without everything else. And Macy showed me that Aristotle's words are truer than true then and even today. It is all about, Zach's going to go to the next slide for me. The whole, all of us together, is really greater than the sum of the parts. 1 + 1 does not always equal 2. It can equal more if we come together. And that is what we see in this program with FALCON AEROLAB, right? You don't just learn how to fly or do gliders or do drones. You learn avionics and propulsion and design and AI and CAD, because it's all of this that is really going to propel aerospace into the 21st century to heights that your parents and I cannot even fathom or understand. Macy instilled in me the desire to learn everybody else's part, because just knowing that there are parts is only part of it. I want to learn what you do so that I can support you and advocate you and understand how your piece fits into the puzzle so that I can go do my piece. I looked for opportunities to really engage with all those other parts and learn their role, because then I could be a better officer and a better leader and a better teammate. At the United States Weapons School, our version of Top Gun, your parents might have watched the news a few months ago. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff highlighted the Air Force Weapons School, and he said, we don't have beach volleyball at our school. And I kind of love that, because there's always a little bit of good competition and rivalry in everything that we do. It kind of keeps us motivated and going. But most of us will go to weapons school not to be a Top Gun graduate, but to support the training, and that's what I did. And you can see that it says Home of the Fighter Pilot. And the first time you go through the gate as a young fighter pilot and see that, you're like, oh wow, I really am at the place that makes the best of the best. And when they graduate, they wear that patch that is on the left part of that slide. And I learned early on in about 2000, the mantra that they came up with is their North Star. And I want to share that with you because I think this mantra really matters to each and every single one of us in how we live our life with our attitudes and actions. And their saying is humble, credible, and approachable. Those are 3 easy things that all of us can remember, even my 5-year-old back there, of who and how you want to be every day when you show up. You want to be humble. You might be the best of the best. But if you walk into that room and like, I'm the best of the best, people don't really want to be around you. You want to have that confidence in the competence in what you do, but you want to be humble so that you can share your knowledge and your wisdom and help the team. You want to be credible, right? Each and every single one of us wants to learn our job, learn our role, and really get the A grades in our school or in our job or in life. And then you want to be approachable, right? You want to be the person where somebody can come up to and go, hey, I think I have a stupid question. And they're like, there's no such thing truly as a stupid question. Let's sit down and talk about it. So think about the fighter pilot mindset of always being humble, credible, and approachable. Because that mindset is also going to be what allows you to see all the other parts that make the mission and make the team, and that really drive to success. Because without each of us, success really is elusive, and it's not going to be something that we can attain. So we'll fast forward through my combat time. We can maybe talk about that a little bit later. And it is now 2006. In the Air Force, I'm a whopping 30 years old. The Air Force has given me every single thing that I've ever experienced in life, from childhood to college to a career to a job that's not really a job because you cannot call a flying fighter a job. It's way too much fun. And so now it's my turn to give back, because that's also something my parents instilled in me, was service in giving. So I decide that I'm going to apply for the Air Force Thunderbirds, and I'm going to give back to the Air Force by being part of this team. So once again, I kind of set the bar low, average. No. I set it really high because the Thunderbirds only hire 3 pilots a year out of all of the pilots and fighter pilots that we have in the Air Force. And you have to get letters of recommendation, just like you have to for everything in high school and beyond. And so I go to my group commander, who's kind of like the superintendent for school to all of us who are in grade school. And I tell him I want to apply for the Thunderbirds. And he goes, don't bother. Because they just hired their first female pilots. They're never going to have 2 at the same time. There's no percentage of the Air Force that is 30% female. So don't waste your time. And as he's talking, that spark inside of me is hearing no. And so my answer is going to be like, okay, sir, you watch me go. But you got to be a little bit more respectful in uniform, right? My Civil Air Patrol cadets in the back. But Mark will laugh because We know that when we say these words to a superior officer, it's kind of pushing back in the most respectful way. Sir, with all due respect, I'm going to apply for the Thunderbirds. And I didn't allow his no to stop me again, because I had learned that lesson in life at the Air Force Academy. And Mark gave it away, but for 2 years, I got to fly in my position, the coolest, or in my thought, the coolest position on the team. And why do I think it's the coolest position? Because I got to do all those things on the bottom there. I got to fly in that 5 card as the aircraft that is on the bottom right. I got to fly in our 6-ship Delta formation, where we are flying 400 miles an hour, 3 feet from another aircraft, 300 feet above the ground. And then I got to do the awesome max performance of the F-16 and do all the solo maneuvers with my lead solo or opposing solo. But the picture on top there is really what matters, because the same thing is true of the Thunderbirds from what Macy Jenkins taught me back in the 94th. It takes 130 team members in 25 different vital functions to put those 6 aircraft in the air every single day across the country and some years across the globe. It is absolutely not about Thunderbirds 1 through 6. It is about every single man and woman in that top picture who wears the uniform and really showcases the pride, precision, and professionalism of the Air Force Thunderbirds. And I can tell you that on this team, without a doubt, the thing I learned the most was that trust and teamwork are absolutely needed in a job where your life might depend on it, but it really is required in everything that we do. And trust is not something that you get to walk in the door with every single day. It's something that we all have to grow and cultivate by showing up what we say, what we do, how we act in that humble, credible, approachable fighter-pilot mindset. I'm often asked, what is my favorite maneuver? But I first want to showcase my crew chiefs. In that upper right picture, it is Harley Davidson and Dan Hampton, who every single day made sure that me and my jet were safe to go fly. Without them, and Jory Sear and Chris Mason the following year, I didn't have a jet to fly. They were part of those vital functions that made it possible for me to get in my jet and do my job. But I am often asked what my favorite maneuver is, and I only respond with this next one of the crossover break. Zach's going to get it for me. And people will ask me, why is this your favorite maneuver? And there are some, without a doubt, that are a little bit more visual illusions. This one, 1,000%, if we do it wrong, it's not going to look like that. It's going to look like a fireball. And it takes the trust and teamwork of Thunderbird 5 and 6 to make that hit day in and day out. Can you play the video?
For smoke on, ready now. Turn left forward.
Hello, pilots. From behind and overhead.
For the left.
The breathtaking crossover break.
Left. Stand by. 6. 6 up. Ready now.
Next slide. So what did you see there? Some of the background you heard the narration where Thunderbird 8 would say, watch now as Thunderbird 5 and 6 come over the crowd in the crossover break. And then you heard me in this video as Thunderbird 5 doing the commands to Thunderbird 6. So what we do is, and I'll talk about myself more as 6 in this, as 5 says, stand by, 6, 6 out, ready now. On the S in standby, he pushes his power up to mill power, and I pull my power back a little bit. And we start to move where we see some line of sight in our aircraft. Then on the 6 out, ready now, on the N and now, he puts his lift vector on me and pulls 5 times the force of gravity toward my aircraft. I put my lift vector on him and I pull 7 times the force of gravity toward him. The only reason we don't hit is because of that little bit of line of sight and the 2G difference in how we're pulling. So the very first day that I go out and I do this, 5 does that cadence just like you heard me. Stand by, 6, 6 out, ready now. He starts to pull toward me. I look over at him and I'm like, oh, hell no. And I pull straight up. And I was like, uh-oh, I just messed that one up. And it takes about 15 minutes to fly back to Nellis, and we get into the debrief, and the first thing that 5 does is apologize to me. I messed up. Why is 5 apologizing to me? Because the debrief is absolutely paramount to every single thing that we do as fighter pilots. We might fly for 30 minutes, but we debrief anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. Because this is where we learn. This is where we grow. This is where we are better tomorrow than we were today, because we want to see what we can do to improve. Even when the mission is great, there are still ways where you can go from good to great. So we're going to debrief this in order to be better. And it takes that humble, credible, approachable mindset for all of us to really be willing to acknowledge the goods, the bads, and the uglies. And that's what 5 was doing that day. He acknowledged the bad. And I was like, what was the bad? And it was his cadence. He did that cadence as if he had just finished his 200th performance with his old Thunderbird 5. But this was the first time he and I had ever gone and done this. We didn't have the trust between us yet to do it that fast. So he took ownership of his actions that day and said he messed up, and tomorrow we would go out and we would do it where he had the proper cadence, much slower. Stand by, 6. We'd watch this open up. 6 out, ready now. And over time, we would get closer and faster and more the cadence you heard, because each time we did this together, we built the trust with each other to almost operate as one aircraft, even though we're in 2 different jets. We grow trust every single day through our attitude and actions. You need trust and teamwork to fly upside down at 150 feet, going 500 miles an hour, flying next to another aircraft, to get that perfect calypso as in the previous picture. And we show up every single day with the idea that we want to make a stronger, better, more capable team. And we do this through our authenticity. That's being us, who we are every day, showing up to do the work, putting forth the efforts through our actions, and being empathetic. And empathy in this part means learning what everybody on the team does to understand truly that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Andrew Carnegie once said that teamwork is the fuel that allows common people, all of us in this room, to attain uncommon results, which is some of what you can see the Thunderbirds do day in and day out. So it is all of us showing up day in and day out in order to achieve success. Will you skip 2 slides for me, please? So I'm going to leave you, and we'll open it up for some Q&A, to my 5 C's, and the 5 has to be upside down. Does anybody know why? Go ahead. So if I'm spending my time upside down and the 5 is upside down, when I go past the crowd, the 5 looks normal, right? Check it out next time. So my 5 C's are commit, create, cultivate, connect, and communicate. Commit yourself to your dreams, right? Commit yourself to your dreams, because somebody around you is going to tell you you can't do that. But be like me, and when somebody tells you no, say, watch me go. Create the conditions for success, which is your attitude and your actions and putting forth the effort every single day. Cultivate the relationships around you by connecting with the people, learning what everybody does, so that you can be the strongest, best Red Sox team that will beat the Yankees tonight. And then communicate your desires, your dreams, your part in the mission, and other people's part in the mission. Because these 5 C's will help you on your path to setting your eyes on the skies to achieve your dream, whatever that may be. So thank you very much for listening to me today. I will tell you that the video you're going to see has a lot of great things in it. And the team that made this video was 2022, so about 15 years between them and my team. And there are definitely differences. They've changed some things around in the show sequence. But truly, without a doubt, we all wear that Thunderbird patch because we all want to really showcase the men and women who volunteer to serve in our armed forces, regardless of the service, every day. And there is a heritage, a lineage, a camaraderie, and a teamwork that transcends your team to everybody's team forever. So I hope you learned something. I did offer Mark and Sarah, you have any specific Thunderbird questions after it, they're going to capture those. They'll send them to me. We'll make some little video answers and send them back out to all of you since I have to go catch my plane. But with that, what questions do you all have? Because I think we still have a bit of time, right? What time is it? 1 second. 10:52, so I was supposed to end at 10:50, so I'll debrief myself on the extra 2 minutes. That's why I asked what time it was. Yes, sir?
How many times does your leg get blown up?
Luckily, my leg never did get blown up, and I never had to eject out of my plane, which was good. I did get shot at in 2000 over Iraq, but it didn't hit my plane. It was just over there, and my response, I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. It's just like the book tells us it's going to be. And I didn't think, oh, my gosh, somebody's shooting at me. I was kind of like, your training kicked in, and you kind of saw from just what we see here of inspire, educate, and train. My training took hold, and I did exactly what I was supposed to do as Eddie 2 and called in a rules of engagement where them shooting at me allowed us to respond. So I thought it was cool. Well, I had to get permission, but yes, that's exactly what we did do. It's exactly what we did do.
Any questions?
Oh, yeah. I'm supposed to repeat your questions, too. We're going to try to use the mics so that Zoom worlds can hear also.
What was it like transitioning from the airframe of the F-15 to the F-16?
Yeah. So the F-15C is an older designed aircraft. So when you pull back on the stick, it actually moves parts of the aircraft to make you go up. Unless you're upside down, and then you pull back on the stick and go the opposite way. So it takes a little bit of thinking. And the F-16 is fly-by-wire and has a side stick that only moves 1/4 of an inch. And I thought this was going to be extremely difficult to transition. But it actually wasn't, because you understand kind of the aerodynamics of flight, and it does really work the same. And so it wasn't as difficult. I think the harder part was Boeing, McDonnell Douglas built the F-15C, and we have this one display, and the buttons go around it clockwise. In the F-16, it's the exact same looking display, but the buttons are counted counterclockwise. So when somebody would say, go to the button 5, half of us would go here and half of us would go here. And then the voice from the experienced Thunderbird would come over the radio and be like, hey, combo, go to 15. And then I would go down here and we'd get the right button. That was probably the hardest thing, is very, very similar things, but they tweaked it enough to be different for you to sometimes go, huh. But it wasn't that difficult. But it was kind of like going, so before anybody asks me this question, from a Cadillac to a Mazda Miata, right? And so I did miss my F-15C. Yes, sir?
So there was one slide, and there was one picture of one Thunderbird on top and one Thunderbird on bottom, and the tails were touching.
Yes.
Is that actually possible?
Okay, so remember I told you I love the crossover brake because it was like one of the maneuvers that was not an illusion? Do you want me to tell you the magical secret of Calypso? Can you go back to that picture?
Are they like this?
We are. We're offset, so we'll go back to that picture. So we're not right on top of each other. 5 is a little bit closer to the runway, and 6 is here. And your teachers will teach you about this because you'll go back and ask, and it's called parallax. So as long as we're on this line, the tails will touch. And so that is a perfect hit. And most of the time, I did not have perfect hits. I will get scored every day in our debrief of TT high or TT low, which means tiny, tiny bit high or tiny, tiny bit low. And you'll hear some of that in the Netflix video, or triple T wide, tiny, tiny, tiny bit wide. And so if you see space between the aircraft, that is triple T high. And if you saw where the tails overlap, that would be triple T low because we're touching. So that would be like perfect hit. Then that would maybe not be good. What other questions do we have? And number 6 makes everything look good. It's not 5, it's all 6. Just put that out there, truly. Yes, ma'am.
Did you have really hard days trying to not listen to all the voices of doubts that were around you, especially you being a woman in a male-dominated field?
So just so everybody could hear, because for some reason it was hard. Did I have hard days where the voices of the naysayers around me or even in my head, did I have those days, and then what did I do to block those out? Yes, of course, I had those days, and I'm sure that all of you already have those days. I've often said, probably would not go back to high school for all the money in the world. I kind of think high school is probably harder than any other stage of life because of the peer pressure, and we didn't even have social media when I was in high school. So the things that I think that are important for you to deal with the naysayers that will be around you in your world are a good foundation, right? If you can stand on firm ground, you can easier block out that noise. And that foundation is your parents, your teachers, your friend group, your church, your beliefs, your values, your morals, right? But it's really the people that you can connect with every single day that can give you the affirmations on the days where you need it, and can tell you to block out those people when that voice might be getting in a little bit too much. And I would say that with that, you want those people to help you stay grounded, because it's very easy to get a big head when you're, the first female solo Thunderbird pilot, right? But when you realize that it's not about you and it's about what the whole team does and the purpose of this group in order to hopefully inspire some boys and girls to be tomorrow's fighter pilot, you can stay grounded. And when somebody tells you you're not all that big of a deal, it's easier to remind yourself to be humble, credible, and approachable. So find your good friends, even if they're not the cool kids, because the cool kids might not actually be that cool. And stay focused on truly who you are inside, which will help push away all of those people who are just really trying in some way, shape, or form to bring you down.
Any
Last
others?
question. Yes, ma'am. I love your shirt. Because of the color and the words. She's wearing Air Force blue shirt that says kindness. What could be better?
Is it easier to fly upside down or right side up?
So 5 gets all the love, right? Because the 5 is upside down. Everybody wants to figure out why the 5 is upside down. And it's kind of more boring. Because you have to be stable, right? Like my whole job is to just be upside down, perfectly flat, level, smooth for 6, who's coming in and making it all happen. And so last week I had breakfast with Thunderbird 6, who is the 3rd female solo pilot. Lainey Scholl, F-35 pilot, goes by Rogue. And I was telling her her and her 5, hands down, are better than I ever, even on my best day. And she's like, it's all 5. And I said, no, it's not. And I know that it's not all 5. It is you. 5 is just a boring, stable platform. But it was his education that helped her along the way to be able to make everything, honestly, perfect, because they are so close to perfection in everything that they do. I'm amazed. And without a doubt, 6 is more fun. 6 doesn't get the glory, but probably should.
Okay, well, I think we have to say goodbye to Colonel Weeks because she has to catch a plane to do something very important. Did anybody check out her shoes?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I have the
all
coolest
noticed
shoes.
her shoes.
I just got to
And,
show you my
no,
shoes.
I mean, look at that. Thunderbird shoes. I mean, you know. Of course
They're called the lead solo, and I had nothing to do
No.
with it. But when I
Hey,
saw them, I
I'm
was like, I
pretty
have to get
impressed,
those.
Pretty impressed, but no, thank you. This is incredible, Samantha. It just, you're just such a good role model for all of us. You know, not just the girls here, but all of us. And you're just, we're just so proud of you and your leadership. She didn't talk. She mostly talked about Thunderbird because you're going to see the movie now. But she did so much more when she was a leader of group commander, wing commander, with thousands of people working for her. So being a pilot is one thing, but being a leader is the next thing. And whether you're leading your family, your church, your homeowners association, or a huge corporation, it's all about leadership. What we did as fighter pilots, like Samantha said, I couldn't even believe I was getting paid to do it. I had to support my family, but, you know, I would have done it for free if they didn't give me food. Anyway, when I met with Samantha a couple weeks ago, I asked her if, I can't remember how it happened, but she says she likes to fly aerobatics, so I've got an aerobatic flight for her with the best aerobatic pilot that I know in Colorado, and his...
Second best?
Okay, second best. She's the best. I got it. Okay.
That was an example of not being humble.
Yeah, okay.
As a joke.
Okay, but Mark Stewart is amazing. The FedEx pilot, he was an Air Force pilot, but his airplane just won the top award in the whole country at the biggest air show. And you get a flight with him, and then tell me how it went. Okay,
Thank you.
so thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Oh, catch your airplane. No, this is amazing. And I just wanted to tell you, on November 5th, we have another Air Force Academy graduate, class of 87. He's probably the smartest person on artificial intelligence I've ever heard of or met. His name is Jeff Rhodes, and he's going to be our speaker. And if you know anyone that wants to know, this guy knows everything. He's absolutely graduated #1 in his class at the Air Force Academy. He's like the smartest. And I had him brief Mrs. Hurley and me, and we were just, our jaws dropped. I mean, so he said the bringing out of artificial intelligence is like the invention of the personal computer. It's going to change our whole way of life that much. So if you want to come back on November 5th, that's our next distinguished speaker. And then on December 5th, we have Amelia Earhart. Not the one, she passed away in the, about 100 years ago, I know, sir. But this is a woman named Amelia, and she raised money and flew around the world, and she's now trying to find the wreckage, and she's an amazing speaker. So we're starting up this distinguished speaker series just for you and any of your friends that want to join in. So enjoy the Thunderbird